Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we could be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So, like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. Switching to the NFL, got a little March Madness talk out there. I felt like it was appropriate to give Peebush, man. I had to give him a little bit of a Bears corner. They've been tearing it up on free agency. A little bit of a Bears corner, man. They've been tearing it up in free agency. It's only right. A lot of, it hasn't just been like, local Bears fans. I mean, like I said, I follow Big Cat on social media because he's hilarious, but it's been a lot more people in the national media getting a hold of all the Bears free agent signees and all the stuff that they're doing with trades and whatnot. So I just want to give him the floor on some of the big moves that they made and what they potentially could do in the future.
Man, this is just beautiful. Keenan Allen, man, you can talk about his IR stints. You can talk about him being 32 years old.
Yeah.
Man, in 13 games, this man put up 1,200 yards, over 100 catches, man, 7 touchdowns. And that's with Herbert being out half the time, man, with that darn finger. First of all, shout out Justin Herbert. I think he's about to get Malik Neighbors, and I'm just so excited to pair that dynasty up, man. Sorry, man, that's my combo. But, they lost pretty much everybody, the Chargers, and I'm going to start with the Keenan trade because, and I said this earlier, and I saw this, I think it was on a Pro Football Focus thing today that I was watching. The thing about free agency is a lot of these teams, they just feel like they need to throw contracts. And I know I threw the Titans under the bus right at the beginning of the pod with the Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley signings. You could talk about Atlanta giving Kirk Cousins $180 million. That could end up being great for 2 years and be horrible for 2. It could be great for 4 years, or it could be horrible right off the bat. That's a lot of money to be throwing around with such a young team. But usually the quarterback is the final piece, and that's exactly what Ryan Poles took advantage of. He said, I'm not going to give all these contracts out. He gave out 2 solid contracts, the Kevin Byard, the safety, and obviously DeAndre Swift, which you talked about. But he said, I'm going to wait for these teams that have salary cap issues, and I'm going to pounce on one of those guys. I initially thought he was going to go Mike Williams. I'm a little bit happier that he went with Keenan Allen, just because even though they both had injury issues, I think Mike Williams are just a bit more serious. He's coming off the ACL injury. I know he's going to have pretty much a full year of recovery. It happened pretty early in the season. But a 4th rounder for Keenan Allen, I'm fine with that. I mean, I know he's expensive right now. You kind of are opening yourself about a 2-year window of having the exact same offensive weapons with DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, obviously now Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, a couple other guys that can fill in nicely. I actually really like the Gerald Everett signing too. He's kind of an athletic secondary tight end that you can rely on to be a bit more dynamic than Cole Kmet, who's more of just a big body brawler kind of guy. But yeah, man, the Keenan Allen trade, once that happened, I knew right away they were trading Fields. I didn't think it would happen the next day. I am very glad that he did, because if you guys remember, like about a month ago, Paul said he wanted to do right by Fields, whatever they decided to do. And I mentioned this to you guys earlier, but there were a couple other teams that gave him similar offers. The 6th rounder, it's a 6th rounder, man. It's conditional. It could turn into a 4th. If it does, then it's really Justin Fields for Keenan straight up. That's really what they did, which if you have Caleb Williams in the horizon, I'm totally fine with that trade for right now. Did the Steelers get a steal? Yes, they did, because they got him cheap. Their quarterbacks are combined for about $5 million next year.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's impressive. That's great for the long run. I think both these teams just kind of saw the future. And I don't know, man. I'm just happy that Poles got him out of there and didn't force him to wait till training camp, sit through drafting Caleb Williams, making them compete with each other, even though it probably would have been really fun to see. I'd rather Fields just kind of get it over with and have 5 to 6 months to start his new chapter, with the Steelers, whether that be a starter or right away, if he beats out Russ or not. But, man, this opens up so many doors for the draft. They don't need to draft Odunze at 9. They don't have to. I think they should, just because Keenan is getting older and you'd have a triple wide receiver room of wide receiver ones and cheap. But at the same time, you could also trade back a couple spots with the guy like, the Broncos or the Vikings and draft a really solid edge rusher. I think his name's Latu out of UCLA. He's really good. I think he's second or third behind. There's one of the guy, and then Jared Verse is another big one who I think is
Turner and Verse.
Turner, around 10. So they have a lot of options here because they don't have as many draft picks as they once did. They have 4 going into this draft. They have 2 firsts and then a third and a fourth. If they wanted to trade back, I think they could add another third or a fourth there. But man, they're in win now mode. They're doing right by what they have not been able to do for the past 2 quarterbacks that they've drafted in the first round. Instead of building the team and then making the quarterback the first or second to last piece, they forced Trubisky, into a new offensive system. They forced and had multiple coaching changes. They did the same thing with Justin Fields, expecting him to make Darnell Mooney, a top 10 wide receiver, which was, even though he had a 1,000-yard season with Matt Nagy, he's not that guy. He's a good second or third option for a team, which we'll see with the Falcons this year, how he does. So I just think they're finally getting it right, and it took Ryan Poles a couple years of planning to kind of get to that point. I really think their only need now is another edge rusher, some depth at the line, which is easy to get later in the draft. You just kind of need bodies for fresh legs. And then really O-line, they need a good center. They're kind of open at that point. So you're talking about he addressed pretty much every single concern. Caleb Williams is a given, unless they trade back for Jaden Daniels. I don't know why they do
No.
that.
You took one of my points, Fevers.
I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say I would do it. I wouldn't say I would do it. But if someone's that desperate and they're willing to trade, another edge rusher or an offensive lineman or something, I'm guessing he'll consider it, but I'm 95% sure he'll go with Caleb. So you're talking about he has like 3, potentially 4 draft picks to fill in those last couple slots. I'm confident, man. I think they're up there with the Lions as division favorites if they draft Caleb and if they fill in a couple more holes. But once again, you're still dealing with a rookie quarterback. So you got to see how it goes. It might not work right off the bat. So I don't know, man. I'm very. This is the most optimistic I've been for the Bears in a long time. That's really all I gotta say. And I think most people could echo the same thing in and around Chicagoland.
For sure, man. Okay, let's stop it. They're getting Caleb Williams, man. You don't trade away Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick.
I agree. But Poles is surprising.
You're going to use the 1st-round pick on your guy because you. This is the franchise now. Okay, so they're getting Caleb Williams first of all. All I gotta say, what the Bears franchise is doing is getting the 1st overall pick and putting him in the best possible situation a 1st overall pick quarterback I think has ever been in. Because first of all, this is not their pick. So this team is not garbage. Like, this is the Panthers pick right now. Yeah. So this is what the Panthers needed to save their franchise. But you're getting to a Chicago Bears team that kind of finished the season with some sneaky wins. Like, their defense got a lot better post-trade. They had 7 wins. So if they add 2 to 3 wins, that's automatically really a 10-plus win team. That's a playoff team right there. And that's just adding 3 additional wins with all these moves right now. And what you're doing right now is Caleb Williams right now. You get the keys to the franchise. I want to see a CJ Stroud season. That's what I want to see. I want to see an Andrew Luck season. Like, I need to see results immediately. Yeah, Justin Herbert type season. Because, like, compared to their situations, I would say Caleb Williams is in the best situation right now. Because the offense last year was not that good. It wasn't that good. Yeah. And you're putting in elite skilled position weapons. Like you mentioned, Keenan Allen had a career season. Like, he hasn't had that good of a season since probably when his first 5 seasons when he dropped 1,300 yards. Like, last year was a career season. So the guy looking like he's aging pretty gracefully, and he ain't more like a burner down. He's more a strategic attacking target, more of that. I could go that Travis Kelce type player. Exactly. He's like do a little slot, like do a little thing, getting open, running routes. So he doesn't need that alpha Mike Williams run straight down, just being like an alpha and just getting the ball. So he's going to be dominating and giving him a security blanket in the slot that Caleb Williams is going to need to rely. And you got an alpha in DJ Moore. And you're getting a nice weapon in DeAndre Swift. Like, they are giving him everything right now.
Sean Johnson?
Oh, okay, let's think.
Nah, Cole Kmet's where we.
They paid DeAndre Swift all that money. They are going to be
fantasy.
utilizing him, man. They are going to be utilizing
Cole
him.
Kmet's the lowest grade weapon I will back up.
Yeah, Cole Kmet. And you mentioned Gerald Everett, too. They got like two pretty solid, like Cole Kmet last year had a good year. Gerald Everett's always been a nice, serviceable tight end on those Chargers teams. So you're giving this guy weapons for days right now. I'm very, very excited to watch this team play. And I haven't said that. Like, I thought Justin Fields was going to turn the franchise a little around. And on the win side, not really. Win-losses, the Bears were not that good with Justin Fields. Like, they were so bad they got the number 1 overall pick. So they were not getting it done on the win-loss side. But now I think the fortunes have changed, man. And I feel like Bears fans like, okay, like this, the market said Justin Fields. But this is what the market is. People did not want Justin Fields. I'm kind of shocked because I think he has immense upside because of the physicality. Like his physical traits are elite for a football, like NFL, like football quarterback player. Like I know his decision making might not be the best and his throwing might not be the best, but I feel like just development with a front office or like a management and coaching staff that actually knows what they're doing could, because like Justin Fields' story is not over. Mitch Trubisky's story is over, man. He's a backup quarterback. His story is over. I think Mac Jones' story is over, man. He's a backup quarterback. Justin Fields' story is still getting written right now. And if he gets in a situation like in his new situation, like the Steelers, this is a franchise. Mike Tomlin, like they know what they're doing. Historically, this team's always make the playoffs, but ever since Big Ben not being on the team, they haven't found that quarterback to get it done. But they had a mess of Kenny Pickett. Oh my, Rudolph, like Mitch Trubisky, like that quarterback room was disgraceful, and they were still able to make the playoffs. Now you're bringing a guy, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, in that quarterback room, as you mentioned, less than $5 million, and it's a pretty solid quarterback room now. Yeah, and I throw in George Pickens, that core right there. George Pickens is also on his rookie contract, so they have all these. I think it's pretty solid, like offensive players paying very minimal amount of money. Yeah, exactly. Good running backs on really good deals. They have some very good contracts on the books right now. So it's I totally understand why Justin Fields look at that situation and be like, I want to go there. And I believe that coaching staff can develop me. I might have to sit behind Russell Wilson for 1 year because they got Russ for a reason. And they probably promised him the starting job for the year, give him a fair shake of being the starting quarterback for the franchise. But after that, open season, if I show some things, I develop, get better under this elite franchise, he might be able to be that because he looked pretty good in that black and yellow right now. I'm like, oh, he looks pretty good because Justin Fields just got that, man. He just looks like a football player, man. He got that swagger, man. He's still an elite athlete, one of the best athletes I've ever seen at the quarterback position. So his story is not over. So I'm happy for him, but it might take a little longer than people expected for a guy drafted in the first round. But Chicago Bears, man, I'm ready to watch you guys play. Maybe finally you guys find a guy that could beat the Green Bay Packers. Maybe finally. Finally. It definitely wasn't last year because Jordan Love looked like Aaron Rodgers that first game. But maybe finally we could get a competitive game where this rivalry could get some competitive games where maybe the Bears actually win some games for once against us.
Hey, man, it's still right around 500 even for the historical record, man. Come on, man.
We're talking about modern era, man. We don't talk about times when we were both dead, man. We're talking about the modern era.
And you finally don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback for the first time in 20 years, man.
That's true.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that.
Almost 30.
Don't know that. After that playoff game,
against the Dallas Cowboys, man. He looked like a Hall of Fame quarterback for that night, for at least.
Yeah, that one night.
He looked good.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, the Bears, as they would say in Chicago, they're back, man. I think they're back. You know, one other thing I saw, just doing a little bit of outside of the free agent signings and just I would say quick research on Twitter earlier today. I know you don't like Eberflus, but I saw that they signed some guy named Shane Waldron. And I was looking at his track record, and what's hilarious about him, I guess you wouldn't say it's hilarious, but what's pretty a damning statement is he put Geno Smith and Jared Goff in their best years. This is when I think the first year when Geno Smith was replacing Russell Wilson. I think he had him at 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I think they lost in the playoffs, got to the playoffs. So, and then Jared Goff lost in the Super Bowl, but I think he went 32-12. They had really good completion percentages. And I'm just wondering, like, maybe, if Eberflus made a good hire with him, maybe Caleb Williams, and I know I said the thing about Jaden Daniels, but maybe Caleb Williams' development might be faster than we think, because if he was able to bring Geno Smith back from the dead, and then he was able to, get Jared Goff to play one of his best seasons, he might come out the gates being crazy. And, looking at the draft position, like, I know the Bears have the 9th pick, but this is just one mock draft. There's a bunch of mock drafts everywhere. But, like, I'm seeing here that the Chargers are trying to target Romeo Odunze. And then I don't think this happens. I don't think Neighbors gets to 9. I think either Neighbors is going to be a top 6 pick, or somebody's going to trade in within that next pick to 7 to get him. Like, I don't think he's dropping to 9 or 10. But it's got the Bears taking Neighbors. And if he's there, go sign a guy and, like, as a a defensive end that's a free agent, that's a try hard, because you stack the receivers, just stack them.
Oh my
God.
God.
You can never have enough receivers, bro. You just never can. Like Keenan Allen, he coming off one of his best years, but let's say he does get injured, you still have another stacked guy in terms of Neighbors being like, okay, he can pick up the slack. I mean, you still have Cole Kmet, but he could pick up the slack. So I think that signing of them having Shane Waldron, like, when I was looking at his stats of what he's done with quarterbacks who I guess we could all agree that they're not in the tier, at least physically, as Caleb Williams, that makes me really excited, because then it's like, okay, you're telling me this guy's a kind of a quarterback whisperer and a guru, then Chicago might be on the track to being really damn good, not just back, like really damn good. So I think that's a pretty cool side note. The one thing I will say, though, is with Fields, I know he went for a 6th round pick, and he got to pick his destination, but Poles, that wasn't his guy. Why didn't they just get rid of him mid-season? They could have got way more value from him, I feel like. He could have been on the Steelers mid-season.
Well, remember he was injured kind of in the middle of the season.
I don't know if it was before or after the trade deadline. I do remember.
But either way,
he missed a couple games.
So if that was the reason why he couldn't get traded, then I get it. But it's like, I mean, hell, even before the season, like, I think what ultimately happened, a couple of days ago was like, they were thinking this before the season. I don't think, because this is what they always say about GMs. If the new regime comes in and they didn't pick the quarterback, I mean, what is the odds on that? They never stick with that guy unless it's an established starter who's won playoff games. Like, and usually those GMs are still with the team.
They're still on the team.
Yeah. So, like, it's rare when the GM gets fired, but you still got a Hall of Fame, like, not Hall of Fame, but like really, really good quarterback, like a top 15 quarterback. So it's like you kind of already knew this was going in the direction. But I will say, with it being, at least they got the condition on it. So it's like, okay, to me, I think it's going to be a 6th round pick. But I do like that they did solid by Justin. Only thing that scares me about Justin Fields with the Steelers is Arthur Smith, man. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's a great coordinator.
I hate that.
And that's his bag, and he's just elite at doing offensive play calls and designing stuff for his quarterbacks. But I didn't like what he was doing in Atlanta. And if he's pulling the trigger, maybe he has a 1-year run with Russell, and then he gets canned, and then, like, Fields gets a real, like, not want to say a real coordinator because that's crazy to say, but like a coordinator that's more adjusted to a style, because that's what it is now. I think, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I Lamar is like the best case study for this. When you bring a guy in like Lamar, you need to get a coordinator who's not stubborn and wanting to do things his way, because I'm pretty sure when Lamar was going through the pre-draft process and when he was going through all his stuff, people were like, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? You know what John Harbaugh did? He's like, I don't care about none of that. Bring me an OC in here who's going to adjust to the style of Lamar and make him successful. I think a lot of times it's the same thing with offenses. Like, you can say 15, 20 years ago era is like, got to have a guy that's a drop back passer. I don't want athletes back there. And while it's still true that you got to win from the pocket, because winning from the pocket is what wins Super Bowls in this league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a crazy athlete, but his plays are made in the pocket. Being a offensive coordinator who can maneuver his style to where, hey, I know I got an athlete back here, or I got a guy who's different, who's not just going to sit back there, is beneficial to the quarterbacks that are coming into the league. Because if you're looking at the crops of quarterbacks that are coming into the league now, even someone like Drake May, like, he's not the athletes of all the other guys that are in the class, even Michael Penix. but they can still run around and make plays outside of the pocket. And that's what the league is morphing into. And if you even look down the crops of guys of like, if you're really into like recruiting, all of the top guys and athletes and the guys who are number 1, number 2, they all can run around. So it's like, I feel like if coordinators get more to what I saw or more into the bag of what I see with the Shane Waldron guy, like, Geno Smith is a decent athlete and Jared Goff's not an athlete. But to me, that speaks to just the genius of him as a coordinator. Because if you can get Jared Goff to play at a super high level and you look at Geno Smith to play at a super high level and they're 2 different types of quarterbacks, that speaks to, hey, I'm looking at my personnel and I'm adjusting to that. I think sometimes, and I know it's easy for me to say that because I'm not a coordinator and it's just like I haven't done the hours to like prep and do all this type of stuff to like produce plays and run scripts within a game. But I do think it's important to adjust to your personnel. So hopefully Fields, Arthur Smith will probably be there when he actually gets to play. Hopefully he adjusts his play style or play calling to Fields to make him successful because he's not a traditional quarterback.
No,
he's just not. He's not a traditional quarterback. And in this league, you don't need a traditional quarterback to win. Patrick Mahomes, even though he's really good at throwing, he's not a traditional quarterback. He's not Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, but he might end up
let's not take
the
it
best
easy,
quarterback
man.
ever.
When he's in the pocket, he can be.
No, I'm talking about as an. I mean, he is good within the pocket. I'm just talking
he
about
is good. He is good. He's a good pocket. Yeah. If he only had to be a pocket like picking quarterback, he could still do that.
Yeah. But Zoo, you could argue though that they won the Super Bowl this past year because of his plays running out.
Obviously, yeah. I love a quarterback extending plays and making the defense have to feel.
But I think Sean's
plays
point
is more of a better.
Sean's point is you need to be able to do both this year if you want to win.
In the modern era of football, like. Being a statue.
Because the defensive ends now, too, that's another thing. Like, they're all, like, in that 240, 230, not 230, but, like, 240, 250 range, and they're sick. Like, defensive end might be the best athlete on defense outside of maybe the corner. So, like, you kind of got to have a guy that can move because, the offensive tackle can only – they can block them, but they can only block for so long. So, it's like you kind of got to have a guy that can at least move out the way and then make an elite throw. So, like I said, Justin Fields, I think he did pick, the Steelers, and that was a good decision. We'll see how that goes. And Bears, man, it's going to get spooky. If they get a receiver at 9, it's going to get spooky, bro. Because it's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy.
You better believe I'm placing futures bets, boys. That's all I'm saying.
Neighbors or Doomsday, whoever, oof.
Damn, would they go receiver again? Like as you said, Sean.
If it's Neighbors, I think they do. But to people's point, if it's a Doomsday, they may trade back.
Oh, you think so?
I think if it's Neighbors, they take them. If it's a Doomsday, they might trade back. Because then Brian Thomas Jr. might.
The only other argument though is that there are such a deep wide receiver class of potential wide receiver ones. I think you could argue through like Brian Thomas Jr. could be wide receiver ones in this league, but there are usually more often. And I'm talking about what they could do in next year's draft. Because remember, they got a capital for 2025 as well, right? You can get a great edge rusher in the second round. They can turn out to be great. I know you can get Micah Parsons or, Aiden Hutchinson, but you can still get like a Montez Sweat, right, in the second round and be opposite. So my point is, if you use that wide receiver pick this year, you might have more options for edge next year and just use a filler year. But I think it depends who's there, to Sean's point.
I will say, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Sims. He's a quarterback guy, I think, with NBC.
Yeah.
He had Neighbors 1 as his receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. 2, and Marvin Harrison 3. And he said the reason why is Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors have giddy up to separate. He said Marvin Harrison didn't have the giddy up. So we'll see. I don't know. But it's kind of feeding my agenda.
He said he don't got those burners, huh? He doesn't have the burners.
Yeah, he's saying he don't have the burners. But we know that doesn't matter because look at Devontae.
Maybe they trade back to 12 and take Brian Thomas and get an extra pick.
Listen, I still think Marvin Harrison is the top receiver, but it's not crazy to say because LSU receivers have just always hit. They just always hit.
They're on a streak right now.
It's not crazy. He's not a psycho for having that tape. Like,
them and OSU. Those are wide receiver U's.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. We'll see what breaks down in the draft. Like I said, that's end of April. So we still got to get through March Madness. Make sure you guys, like you said, I think we said at the beginning of the pod, make sure you fill out the brackets.
Don't forget, man. Do not forget, chalk. Yeah, do not forget. Women's Thursday.
Yeah, don't do that. Like I think actually is it? I think the first 4. I think they might be playing today or tomorrow. Not
tomorrow,
sure.
It should be the day before, right?
Yeah. But anyways, make sure you fill out your brackets. Make sure you follow the podcast, Tyson Talks _ on Instagram, Control Knows on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Give us a 5-star review and like so we can get in the algorithm so people can listen to us. And for me, Zoo, and Peebush, we are.